We're Don and Vicki Coen from Community of God's Love in Steubenville, Ohio. And I've been a part of the Covenant community for 42 years. And Vicki is my second wife, my lovely wife, and the community gave me another wife. My wife Margaret passed away nearly 5 years ago, and Vicki was in our life back in the late 1980s. So I'm very blessed to have her here. My call to community was started really back in, I say, 1972. I was very active in the Cursillo movement in our diocese, and my wife and I were part of a small group. But something was missing, even though it was great. We did not have friends with children in the community, in the Cursillo movement at that time. So most of our relationships were with families that were the age of our parents. And so back in around 1977, when the community was being formed, we kind of looked into it, went to an information night, and I realized at that point there that we would be a part of the community. It was a place for our family, for our raised children, but I had commitments to the Diocese of Steubenville. At the time, I was a lay leader for the Cursillo movement, and I had a 3-year commitment yet. So I just kind of waited the time to go before we could join the community. And so we joined in 1980, and it's just been a blessing. I don't know what life would be without the Covenant community. It just really gave us a place where we could come and know and the Lord more, to worship Him more, to raise our children, but also just to have the support that we needed, to have a men's group. Now I've been a part of a men's group for much more than 42 years, and it's been a lifesaver. And that's one of the blessings of being a Covenant community, is have brothers and sisters who you can support and who support you, who call you on when you need to be called on, who encourage you, time to worship it, but also time to have good, sound Catholic teaching that we received in the Covenant community. And that's been one of the godsends over these years, is that I'm no longer the man that I used to be, but I have not arrived yet. I've got a long way to go, but it's through having brothers and sisters to support me, to support our family, and it's just been a blessing. Okay.
Okay, my name is Vicki Coen, and I was born and raised in Chicago, and was married in Chicago and to my first husband, and we belonged to a charismatic prayer group that was really a meaningful part of our lives. And we were the music ministry. We were part of the core group for Life in the Spirit seminars. We did the fire rallies that came out of Steubenville, and that's when we really learned about Steubenville. When our first son was born, we decided that we wanted to discern coming to Steubenville to become a part of the Covenant community, to raise our family with other young families that were having children, similar family values. So we became a part of the Covenant community in 1989 when our son was 2. We were in the community for 4 years, and then we moved away, and we actually lived in 10 different parts of the country. And although we always met wonderful Christian people, it was never the same as our friends in the community in Steubenville. So I was married for 22 years and divorced for almost 17 years when I came back to Steubenville to become a hospice nurse. And that was when I was reacquainted with Don and became a part of the community again. I was born and raised in a practicing Jewish home, and with my first marriage, I had become Catholic as an adult, and I wanted to incorporate some of the Jewish traditions into our Mass, and my sister said it would upset the rest of the family, so I unfortunately didn't do that. But one of the women in our prayer meeting had a prophecy that although I couldn't have the Jewish canopy in my wedding, that I always have the canopy of God's love. And although my sister wasn't the sister that I wanted her to be, God would always give me sisters everywhere I went. And he has. And everywhere we moved, I've always met wonderful Christian women, but none of them have been the women in the community. I came back every year for 30 years to the women's retreat, and it felt like I was coming back to my family. And so when I came back in 2018, back to live in Steubenville, I felt like I was finally home again.
Yeah, one of the things that Vicki was talking was when they would go on the retreats, I would always ask my wife Margaret, who were some of the women that came to the retreat that previously had been a part of our life, and she always mentioned Vicki, and it seems like when Vicki came, it was like, well, Margaret, was probably planting a seed that if something happened, because she always wanted me to remarry if something happened to her, and that was one of the reasons that she never wanted me to become a deacon in the church, because if your wife passed away, then you couldn't remarry. So I think the blessings of Margaret and the wisdom that she had in doing this.
Mm-hmm.
When Vicki was talking in 1987, our youngest child was born. So at that point, we already had 3, and at that time we had a picture taken of all the children that were born in that one year. There were 40 children born in 1987 in the community. So we had tons of little feet running all over the place. Mm-hmm. But the blessing was we always had so much support. Mm-hmm. We had families that were always ready to reach out, to provide a meal, to come over to watch the kids, in any way to help out. Mm-hmm. I'm blessed that, whereas Vicki is from Chicago, this is my hometown. I'm one of the few in the community actually who have lived here their entire life. Mm-hmm. And it's just been a real blessing. Mm-hmm. The share in our men's group is great. We about 2 months ago in our men's group, there were 5 of us, and we decided just to change our format a little bit. So we went back to, I think it's called Signposts, the booklet that we had that we used years ago, and started doing that again. So every week we have actually a structured session. This last week was on sin, and how has sin affected your life, and how are you tempted, and it was really good. But things like that will not happen if I was out in the world. Mm-hmm. But in this community, it's been like a haven for me. It's been a real blessing. I wouldn't change anything. I just love it. It's been good to me. I've served in various capacities over these 42 years, and I love it. Mm-hmm. It's been a blessing.
Yeah, being charismatic has definitely changed my life. And I was also involved in Curcio before I became charismatic. So Don and I have that in common as well. But when I came back in 2018 to become a hospice nurse, I had a patient that many of you know, Monsignor Cornelius. And when he passed, I went to the calling hours with a couple of other nursing friends, and I saw Don going into the line, and we'd already come out of the line. And I just said out loud, "Oh, that looks like Don Coen." I hadn't seen Don for 20 years, for 30 years, but I had seen Margaret every year, but I just hadn't seen Don. And so when he came through the line, I went up to him and I said, "I don't know if you remember me, but I'm sorry to, Vicki Canella, I'm sorry that I hear about Margaret." And he gave me this great hug, and in that moment, the Lord told me, "This is your husband." So without being charismatic, I would not have this wonderful husband, this man sitting next to me. How the Lord has changed my life and got me through a lot of trials with my faith, and given me just a really wonderful husband. And that would not have happened without community and God's providence.
And he's given me a wonderful wife.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen.